Jared Heller with Dakota Underground in Fargo here. We are the general contractor for the Main Avenue project, Phase 2 for this year, 2020. We were also the general contractor for Phase 1, which was last year from 2nd Street, which included the new roundabout, to Broadway, just the east side of Broadway. And what we essentially did last year is we reconstructed the road, removed all the existing old pavement, redid the underground infrastructure, and then repaved it with brand new concrete through there. Added new sidewalks, removed the sidewalks, and added additional parking along the stretch. This year's project encompasses basically from University Drive all the way to the west side of Broadway. So this year, really the first major impacts for traffic this year will be kind of what we're calling is Phase 4, which is basically from the east side of University to the west side of 10th Street, the overpass there. And so basically starting Monday, April 13th, we'll be shutting access down, going eastbound on University for starting removals. That'll be kind of the very first impacts for traffic. So just like last year, last year's project Phase 1, we went through and reconstructed the road. This year's project is very similar in the sense that we'll be removing all the existing pavement. We'll be replacing all the utilities under the ground, including sanitary, water main, storm sewer, and replacing it, adding parking along the stretch between University and Broadway. And adding new sidewalks, tree plantings, and such. So as I mentioned, next week we'll be starting on the stretch from University to just west of 10th Street there. Give about a week's time, around April 20th, we plan to dig into University Drive south through the intersection here, which will require some lane closure. It won't be completely shut down, but we'll be reducing some lanes to allow us to do some work within here. When University Drive is done, essentially anybody kind of driving eastbound on Main Avenue, there will actually be dynamic message boards set up, which are message boards that you kind of see along the highways now that kind of warn you of trains. And essentially there will be a lane going northbound, so you can go underneath the underpass out of University Drive and head up to NP Avenue to avoid trains going eastbound on Main Avenue. All said and done, University Drive, we have a time frame of about 30 days to complete once we start. So that's the anticipated start and stop date is basically 30 days going through, if not sooner, hopefully. But we have 30 days once we start the clock to get all the work done within the University Drive and Main Avenue intersection. So going forward, as far as after kind of University is done, phasing on our progression of our work, Phase 4, like I said, is from University Drive to 10th Street. Once we have 30 days done on University, once we're done to the intersection of University Drive and Main Avenue, that allows us to get into the next phase of work, which is Phase 2, which is from Broadway to 8th Street, including the intersection of 8th Street. Right now, we can't get into that phase until we're done with University Drive and that 30-day window. So essentially what we'll be doing is we'll be working on Phase 4, working on Phase 1, which is University Drive, and once we're done with Phase 1, the anticipated plan is to jump over to Phase 2, which is from Broadway to 8th Street, including the intersection, to start working in removals and start working on utilities on there that way. And then essentially working that way, and then once we kind of get through Phase 2 and progress along Phase 2, we'll jump into Phase 3, which is basically from 8th Street over to the east side of 10th Street. And then Phase 5, which is essentially, right now, the bridge deck over 10th Street underpass is going to get removed and replaced by one of our subcontractors, which kind of will be incorporated in within Phase 3 of our work, but shouldn't impact any traveling public at the time. So, all right, for the Phase 4, which is starting Monday, for the traffic impacts for the business owners on the north side of Phase 4, which runs again from the west side of 10th Street up to University Drive, we'll actually be using a temporary access point off the side street of 10th Street. We'll kind of veer north across the old McDonald's parking lot and into the businesses along the north side stretch west of 10th Street. From that point, there'll be entering that way, basically entering into that business section from the east, and then they'll be exiting out of that business area to the west and out through 11th Street, and then eventually that might be flipped at some point during the construction to 12th Street. We'll kind of guide you through those two areas of exit, basically, essentially. For the businesses on the south side of the road, essentially the access points are all going to be off of First Avenue South, essentially, and coming through, north up to Main Avenue, essentially. Most of all businesses along there have access off of First Avenue South or some side street, either 11th or 12th Street. Basically, the detour for this Phase 4, if you're going southbound on University and you want to head east on Main, is going to be through the intersection of University and Main to First Avenue South, and then cutting across First Avenue South up to basically 8th Street, and then coming north up to Main Avenue. Throughout the whole project, our main focus, and we've been tasked with, is maintaining business access throughout. So we'll be working with each individual businesses along the way, making sure we communicate the project, what we're doing, the time frames, traffic impacts, and access to their businesses as well too. That also includes pedestrian access. We're required to maintain pedestrian access through the corridor as well too. So working with the city and the DOT, we'll be distributing maps essentially on social media and websites, kind of showing where access points are, where the traffic impact will be. And like I said, we'll be working with individual business owners along the stretch, making sure we communicate the project as we go along, and making sure they continue to maintain business access. And then every couple weeks, I think every 2 weeks, we'll be holding public informational meetings, which at this time with everything going on, will most likely be a virtual setting, essentially, where it'll allow you to kind of gain access to the city stakeholders, the county or the DOT stakeholders, and the contractors, ask questions about business access or anything like that. But I don't hesitate, if there is any questions during the project as a whole, don't hesitate to reach out to any of us at Dakota Underground while we're out here. If you have questions on business access, we're willing to work with you and make sure everything is accommodated as best we can. So.